So I thought I would do up a quick video to let you know about the acronym about time with this make the best use of the time tool. So the first letter is T and it stands for testimony. In 1 Peter 3:15, Paul writes, he says, "But in your heart set apart Christ as Lord. Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you for the reason for the hope that you have, but do this with gentleness and respect." I think that needs to guide all of our testimony sharing times, But we see in the life of Paul in Acts 26, he shares a three-part story. And it's ingrained in the imagination of humanity. Like every story that is written has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Like we need to get that when we're sharing our story, our testimony. What was life like before, what happened, and what was it like afterwards? Now, you can use this for your salvation testimony. You can use it for any time you encounter God, like a spiritual breakthrough, a physical healing, a relationship restored. God is not the God I am. God is the God of I am, not the God I was. While salvation testimonies are personally powerful, people in your everyday world need to know that God is still active in your life today. As you've been obeying Him, you've been creating stories of His goodness that need to be shared in your everyday world. So the question to ask yourself, that part of the tool that's questions, is what is my testimony about Jesus, and what's my most current testimony about Jesus? Take some time and actually sit down and write down both of those things. How were you saved? What was life like before? What happened? What was life like afterwards? Now, this week, God has done some miracles in your life. What was life like before? What happened? What was life like afterwards? Write them out, get to know them, because at the proper time, God is going to get people to ask you those things. And always be prepared to give a reason for the hope that you have, and just do it with gentleness and respect. Okay, got it? Next. Excellent. The second is intentionality. In Matthew 6:23 and 24, Jesus turned to Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan. You're a stumbling block to me. You don't have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns." And Jesus said to his disciples, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves, take up their cross, and follow me." Intentionality for the Christian is to realize that Jesus only said what he heard the Father say, and he only did what he saw the Father do, and it's our role to do the same. It means we'll be intentional in denying ourselves and following Jesus. This life that we've chosen can't be kept as an idea in our head or a sentiment in our hearts, but we have to work out its implication into the day-to-day of every day. Who are you going to intentionally bless? Who are you going to intentionally invite into the rhythm of your life? When you do it, you've already started the discipleship process. So the question is, who in my everyday world am I intentionally drawing to Christ? Now, the first tool, the Everyday World tool, should have given you that. If you haven't done that yet, go and make it a prayerful, do it with prayer. Just say, "Okay, God, show me, who do you want me to influence? Who are the people of peace in these parts of my life? And let me influence them for you." Now, the third is M, it's messy relationships. In Galatians 2, verse 14, Paul is writing, he says, "When I saw that they were not acting in line with the truth of the gospel, I said to Cephas in front of them all, 'You are a Jew, and yet you live like a Gentile and not like a Jew. How is it then you force Gentiles to follow Jewish customs?'" Whenever people get together, things are going to be messy. The closer people are, the more messy it gets. Don't see this as a problem, but an invitation to be authentic with people in your everyday world. Don't expect a sinner to act like a saint, but saints, can you think twice about acting so much like sinners? When I talk about messy relationships, I'm not talking about you. You might think that transparency is a virtue, but transparency without the cross makes a mockery of the cross. Authenticity includes the "but Jesus." That is what I was, but Jesus. It's living out of the truth of how He sees me. Do you know who you are? Do you know whose you are? It's a lifetime revelation that we have to continue to grow in. You're most effective in messy relationships when you live out of your God-created identity. The question for you is, am I living out of who God says I am? Finally, the E is everyday Jesus. In Matthew 6:15, Jesus said, "Who do you say that I am?" The whole process needs to be focused around Jesus. Without him, testimony can simply be our story and we draw people to us. Intentionality can be me coming with my agenda, and messy relationships can be me just being a really good friend. Any discipleship process that doesn't focus on Jesus isn't a discipleship process for Jesus. In Revelation 2, Jesus confronts the church in Ephesus because they have forsaken their first love. He commands them to repent and do the things they did at first. If you're not so in love with Jesus that he just seems to bubble up in your everyday conversation, you need to repent and do the things you did at first. Are you filling yourself up with Jesus in your daily Bible readings? Are you filling yourself up with Jesus by intentionally making space for him space to listen and obey him? The question for you is, can I honestly pray, create in me a clean heart, O Lord, renew the right spirit within me? You know, the best way to make use of time is to be part of a soul friend group. Your soul friend groups are groups of three. Men meet with men, women meet with women. Every week you spend an hour to honestly answer the questions in the booklet. You can allow yourself to be held accountable by your soul friends. It doesn't mean that they're more spiritually mature than you. Kids can hold parents accountable, but I wouldn't recommend your kid for your soul friend partner. You know, in these groups, Jesus is the center. It'll get messy. You'll need to be intentional, and you'll discover your testimony. These groups are not for the faint of heart. They aren't for people who want to stay the same. They're for the ones who want to live love radically, live intentional fearlessly, live generous joyfully, live happy naturally, and live today mindfully. You know, in your life, you'll influence 1,000 people. Will you influence them for Jesus? Those 1,000 will influence their 1,000. Those 1,000 will influence another 1,000. Will your influence will your influence of Jesus reach 1,000,000 or 1 billion? You know, it can. Make the best use of time.